one of the things when we first spoke, I was looking at your website actually, and I noticed your offices. So you've got offices in Rotherham,
yes,
in Teesside,
yes,
and Manhattan,
yes.
yeah. So explain that to me, because that's not a natural set of offices, shall we say? How did the Manhattan one happen?
Okay.
Welcome to the podcast, Craig Boddy.
Thank you.
From Ballyante. Have I pronounced that right?
That's right, yeah.
Excellent, good stuff. So for watchers, listeners, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are and what you do?
Yes, so obviously Craig Boddy from Ballyante. We help businesses with their technology and their IT where things aren't quite right. Systems, making sure that technical support sorted out, their website, web design, development, CRMs. So just technology from that point of view, really, to help them do what they do best. So, if you're a team of HR people or architects, the last thing you want to be doing is struggling with your IT. So we take that pain away.
Okay. So web development, app development, managed service.
Yeah, that's our primary service, IT managed services.
IT managed service. Okay. And how long has the business been going?
Sort of unofficially, about 2015, 16. We launched it full time 2019, so 3 or 4 years now.
Okay. That was just from memory. That was just before something called COVID all kicked off.
Yes,
wasn't it? So
remember that.
Yeah. So how was that for your business? Was that?
I'm not going to lie, it was kind to us.
Okay.
Obviously, people were sent home with, go and work from home. What's a VPN? How do I log on? Where's my files? How do I do this? What's Teams? What's Zoom?
Yeah.
All these things that people just sort of launched into. So we saw a big influx there of people not knowing how to do things, not knowing how to work from home. Not many businesses had migrated to the cloud at that point, or some of them hadn't, and obviously trying to remote into systems within buildings that there was nobody in. So yeah, a lot of sort of projects like that, migrations and cloud migrations, and how to help people get online and training as well. That's a big piece, because I think there's I could go on about this for a whole hour, but there's a big piece around like adult education. They're kind of leaving school at 16, 18, whatever, and if they're going into some sort of different trade, like they specialise in maths or specialising in science or something, they never touch a computer. So there's a huge piece that we're trying to focus that. We've launched a different avenue of our business at the moment, Ballyante Education, where we're trying to like upskill people and trying to teach them basic Excel skills, moderate Excel skills, Power BI. That's a huge reporting platform that's really useful to businesses. People don't know how to use it. So it's just generally trying to bring technology to people and make it understandable as well.
Interesting. So you're going into businesses selling is it a pre-packaged, you buy a classroom style education, or what does that package look like?
Again, we try and make it as flexible as possible. So it's what do you want? Do you want us to come to you? Do you want to come to us? We run them every month in our office. Right. We have about 10-15 places monthly. Sometimes we run them a couple of times if we get a lot of interest that particular month, but it's just about like kind of bringing it to you. But we do it a bit differently in that we ask you to bring your laptop and we work on like Excel, but we work on your problem. Right. So you leave with a bit of knowledge, a bit of how to do something, but also with your problem sorted. So it's like a bit of a quick snippet tour of how to do something, but with that knowledge sort of fixed.
I think that's really good. So obviously one of the themes on this podcast is my age. And I remember in my first sort of office role, they arranged, sort of Microsoft Word, Excel, training, and it wasn't relevant to what I did. It was just very, generic training. Yeah. So while I remembered some of the basics, the power of Excel, which is obviously, hugely powerful. Yeah, I'm scratching probably 3 or 4% of what Excel's capable of, and I think so. It actually sounds really good, the fact that you're making it relevant to the person's problem, so they go, all right, that's what we did, the last time. So actually, I can move that into a real world scenario. Whereas even with Word, you always help me.
Word is I'm most proficient at Word, which is a lot about me. Yeah. It's brilliant, this podcast, because straight away I'm thinking there's products that we sell that we don't offer formal structured training around, and that's a service that we definitely could offer.
Well, just on that, Craig, then, so how popular has that been?
Very, actually. We're seeing a lot of people, existing customers who have seen a gap in their team's knowledge and have sent people on there. People who aren't our customers, who have seen something on LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that, who have just been like, do you know what, say 40 odd, could do with a bit of a brush up. I'd like to come along. So you're seeing a lot of and I think that was the pandemic as well. People are brushing up on their own skills. People are aware of their own skills gap. Maybe it's wanting to help themselves. So we see a lot of that too.
And is it? Sorry, I probably should ask all this off camera. But is it specific to a business, or is it multiple businesses in that one training session, all learning about Power BI? So would it be a Spectrum training session, or would it be a Power BI session that Spectrum could send people to?
It'd be both. Yeah.
Okay.
So if it was something you wanted in your office, we'd send a trainer to you. If you were looking at sort of like 10, 15 people to be trained. If it was just you and you wanted to do it for Spectrum, and you were going to be the only person doing that, then you'd probably come into one of our sessions. So it just varies like that, really.
Like it. And what about the size of the business then? So I know you've been going in various formats for a few years, but if you only started properly since 2019 or full time since 2019, what is there just a few of you? How many have you got within the business at the minute?
So technically there's 9 in total. That includes a couple of part-timers and stuff. Okay. But yeah, I mean, it was myself and my other half who set the business up. We had it running alongside full-time work for a good number of years. That obviously got in the way, like now, 9:30 on a Wednesday morning, I couldn't have come here. I was at work, sort of thing. So obviously by leaving work, I experienced a redundancy, and by doing that, it, opened a lot of opportunities. And I thought, like, I could go into another job and never try this. So I thought, what the heck, let's have a go. And that was a big thing for us, because obviously a lot of people say, like, working with your other half, that could be a bit of an issue in terms of, like, all of the eggs are in one basket sort of thing financially. My other half stayed in work for about 9 months, and then it just got too busy, and we both had to do it. And then worst thing ever was hiring a member of staff. That responsibility and that, like, worry of looking after that one person. But I think we're seeing a lot of decent growth. We're managing it nicely. We're not sort of going too big to what we can be. Just making sure that we're in the right place at the right time. That sort of stuff.
Who's the boss?
Interesting. we kind of split it, really. So Lewis looks after the technical services side of things. I look after, like, the sales, admin, that sort of stuff. So I'd like to say me, but probably him.
Shared responsibility.
Yeah.
Cool. And one of the things when we first spoke, I was looking at your website actually, and I noticed your offices. So you've got offices in Rotherham.
Yes.
In Teesside.
Yes.
And Manhattan.
Yes.
Yeah. So explain that to me, because that's not a natural set of offices, shall we say? How did the Manhattan one happen?
Okay, well, Rotherham is where we live. It's kind of, I've lived there 12 years. So Middlesbrough's my hometown, so I naturally wanted one up there. There's a lot of opportunity into the northeast at the moment. I think it's been really neglected for the last 20, 30 years. I think, in the last few elections, it's been brought into, like, politics and government and stuff about putting some investment into the northeast, and it's lovely to see. So our presence up there really is, and we're getting in, like, a nice bit of traction up there. Got a lovely client base up there now, and it's nice to see that what I'm seeing from, like, the South Yorkshire region, because Sheffield's obviously big city, isn't it? And the sort of disparities between the two, there's a big difference, and I think now that, like, the northeast is getting some of that. I'm sure you maybe experienced a little bit of that in Hull, because it's
definitely
small town and stuff. So it's nice to see it, like, making up and getting that difference. Manhattan,
that's what he's really interested in.
No, I think you're right on Teesside. I think Hull, segue over the last 5 years, has changed radically as a city, and there's lots and lots of really good businesses, startups, lots going on in the city. So I recognise that definitely.
Yeah, and I think comparing sort of, like, London to the northeast, and the difference between those is like comparing sort of New York to England. I think that there's a lot of opportunity over there. People want to work with you. That's the big difference between sort of what you experience in England, and there's a lot of something comes to the market like a new piece of technology, they're all over it, they're wanting to install it in the businesses, they're really excited about it. And we absolutely love the States. We go as often as we can. I think it's a lovely country. And so we started going to networking groups when we went on holiday a few years ago, sort of like 16, 17, 18, that sort of time frame, and just started building a little bit of a mini client base over there. Last year, one of our really good clients over there said to us, I won't do the accent, but it was quite a harsh, you've got something wrong here. And I said, what's that? He said, well, you're trading out of England, it's not going to work for you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, that whole trust piece, what are you going to do about that? Because, you're in a different country. And I said, okay, fair enough. So we, when we went over in November last year, we started having a little look. And we signed up for one in February when we went back in February this year. And so obviously it's not a huge office over there, it's just a sort of a small working space, but it just allows us to have that address, and it allows us to have the presence over there, it allows us to go and meet people when we do go over there. And he was right, if I dare say. In terms of like inbound inquiries can now come in because we've got that presence over there. And that would be the dream, to try and like kind of spend time between the both countries, because I think I don't want to ever leave England. It's my home. It's like there's a lot of opportunities here too. But having that presence over in the US is really good and enjoyable too.
So you're in Manhattan. How broad is your client base there? Is it still quite close around the Manhattan area, or have you branched out?
Largely it's in New York City or state, but we have got a client in Wyoming, one in Florida, and one in New Mexico. So it's like kind of, I think because New York's seen as like London, like the hub of the, I know it's not the capital, but it's kind of seen as that. I think if it was some office in like remote Texas, I think you'd get a couple of clients there, but you wouldn't like reach the whole country. So I think that's kind of what spurred us on for New York City. That was the right place to have it, I think.
And how do you get leads? All right, you've got an office out there, but how does that actually turn into people connecting with you to say, can you come and talk to us about IT?
Mainly we do a lot of the web development, CRMs, and like the social media and digital presence stuff over there. But really just the same as we would here. So just, attending networking groups, and living by our values, so making sure that we do things when we say we're going to do them, making sure that we're giving the right solution for things, and taking that headache away so they can run their business. That's like our kind of mantra, what we live by. We take that IT headache away so that you can get on with, running your HR business, running your finance business. So what you don't understand, we make simple and allow you to excel in what you do rather than holding you back by your technology.
So it's a lot of kind of word of mouth over there, but it must have been instigated from networking events. Is that
networking,
right?
Yeah. LinkedIn's obviously a big thing as it is here. More so over there, really. That there's a lot more people on there, and just the sheer size of the place. There's more people live in New York City, I think, than lives in England as a whole, something like that. So the numbers are not quite far away. So. I think in terms of like the amount of people out there, word of mouth is very good. I think once you get in with somebody over there as well, like the loyalty thing,
right?
If you do someone a good job, they're very, very keen to tell other people, and they're very keen to sort of recommend you. I know we do that here too, but not on the scale that they do.
And what's the perception of the English when it comes to business?
Okay.
In the US.
I asked this question actually to a really good sort of like, it's almost become a friend now, really.
Okay, I want to talk about another process that we often get asked to automate, which is the processing of sales orders. So think about a sales order coming into an organization. Often it's in a PDF or attached to an email. We're using capture technology to extract the information from that sales order. We're checking what products are on there. We're matching it up against a database to say, do these products exist? We're checking the customer name to say, does this customer exist? We might even check the pricing to make sure the pricing is accurate. If all of that matches, then again, we can just push it straight into an ERP system or a finance system, and nobody has to touch it. If there are issues with it, if there are things that don't quite match, we just push that to somebody to manually review and check. But ultimately, again, we're pushing it into an ERP or finance system. It's all about making your life easier. It's about making your team's life easier. And it's about getting cash into your organization quicker and more efficiently. Hopefully that sounds good. If it does, then get in touch. Let's have a coffee and a chat. Enough from me. Back to the podcast.
Yeah. But that we're very easygoing. We work to a very, very high quality of work, so like our standards are a lot higher, but we're a bit sort of wishy-washy in our approach sometimes. Like that, in America it's like, over here where people say they want to work with you, you have a meeting, you map it all out. Over there it's very much like, I want to work with you, go and do it, bye. Right. There's no sort of backwards and forwards of meetings. You'll learn on the first meeting whether someone wants to work with you or not. Simple as that.
Which is not a bad thing.
No, it's not at all. It saves you a lot of messing about. It saves you a lot of toing and froing. Because everybody who's responsible for like the lead generation in the new business, that frustrating cycle, don't you? Of speaking to somebody, they're really interested. You go and see them. They haven't got the budget. Okay, well, what did you book the appointment for?
Yeah.
So that doesn't really happen. I mean, it does, but not regularly in the States. It's like, people who've got the budget, they're willing to spend, then they'll approach you, and they really want the problem fixing yesterday.
Interesting. So on actually that was what I was going to ask around. I get the impression, and you've kind of sort of rubber stamped it, that they get on with things and then they want instant sort of action, if you like. So if you agree to work with someone in the morning, they probably want you helping them by the afternoon. Is that?
Yeah, they're a lot more like understanding than that, I suppose. So like they understand like if something's going to take time, such as like if you're going to be moving somebody from like one platform to another or something like that. They understand that that's going to take time, and as long as you lay the time frames out to them, they're happy with that. And they like to leave you to get on with it quite a lot, which is quite nice. That's they want to know what you're doing, when you're going to do it, and that's it. They're not looking for that kind of granular involvement, because they are like out chasing business like I've never seen. They're really, there's a lot of opportunities out there. They're off chasing it, and they want you just to handle this small snag that they've got in terms of they don't know how to use Teams, or they're wanting the website developing, or they need a new CRM, they're moving from HubSpot, something like that. They just want you just to do it so that they can go and chase what they want to chase.
Yeah. And how price driven is the US market versus the UK? Because my perception, rightly or wrongly, of the UK market in some areas, like I guess web development, you can find web developers freelance. It becomes quite commoditized in some areas. Is that the case in the US, or is it just different?
I think price is less of a factor over there. I'd probably say it's either number one or number two decision over here. Generally it's like brand quality and who you are, and then price. Price is probably like quite down the list in terms of the US market. They want to know what you're about, they want to know how you can do it and how it can improve, and and the working relationship, because they want that relationship with you. So I think looking at all them points first before price comes into it. I think that their economy is probably a little bit better than ours, so I think they've got a little bit more spare cash to be able to invest in things. And they know how to do things properly as well, which is good.
Yeah. And is this the first step of your international expansion? Are you looking at, I don't know, Singapore and wherever else you're looking at expanding further, or is focus on the US?
I think we need to, what's the saying, walk before you can run, or something like that. So I think we'd like to make a good job of this first. Maybe establish a really decent presence out there before we start tackling another country. But never say never. And do you run everything from the UK at the minute, or do you travel out to the US to
work on projects? How does that work?
Both.
Yeah.
So we travel out if we need to, but generally we run operations over here. Our team, we run a highly skilled team of like developers and technicians and stuff. So we don't like make websites on templates and things like that. We're making them from scratch in code to designs. We work with a lovely design company in Sheffield, who's our design partner, we work really closely with.
Right.
And together we have a product there that really, they do the design, we do the build. It works really well. And so it's that kind of the quality of that is what sells us on that aspect. So, but people don't really care where you're building it from. Like the guys in the States, they're not bothered if it's built in England or France or wherever.
Yeah.
As long as it's done and it's exceptional and they can sort of shout about it, they're happy.
And what's the work mix that you have in the US? Is it more the web design, the CRM piece, or is it more the IT support piece?
It's a lot more the website development, the online services like the SEO, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
A few CRMs, a few server customers. So they're kind of like they're the major stuff that we're doing in the US at the moment. The technical support stuff, I think, we're a national company in the UK and we can travel. We've got contractors that we've got access to around the UK. We haven't got that established quite in the US at the moment, so I think to take somebody on without the means to deliver it wouldn't be the right step. So I think until we get to that stage, we'll launch the IT support separately, I think, over there.
Interesting. Can I ask you about the Valiante name?
You can.
So what's the origin? Where did that come from?
So we used to be called something else. So
something else. Interesting name.
Yeah. So we were called Switch My Server originally. And that was a play on words that we thought of. And this is why we use design company to do our designs, because we're not very creative at all. And so that was a kind of play on words about switching your service provider, that sort of stuff. It did as well for about 4 or 5 years. But we kind of needed to rename to a name that fitted what we were. And so, as I mentioned before, the design company we use in Sheffield, a wonderful marketing agency that do our marketing. And we went to them with that problem that, that we think the name has run its course, logo, branding, all that sort of stuff. And so we went on had a bit of a meeting with the managing director, Johnny, who's a wonderful friend of ours, and we went on a bit of a walk and just to kind of like clear our heads away from the office, that sort of stuff. And he asked us what's really important to us, like what do you forget, like kind of generating income and all that sort of stuff. What do you do for your customers? Why are people your clients? Questions like that. And we said that we like to be original. We like to dare to suggest something different. We're not going to just take somebody on and just run with what they've got if we don't think that's the right solution. So maybe that it creates more work in the short term, but it's a long-term game for them. So we have to be individualistic, courageous to suggest things different. So all this sort of stuff. And he went away and he come up with the name Valiante, which is it means them things in different languages around the world. Now I can't remember which one's which. I probably should learn it, to be fair. But it's things like, it means original in like a Korean language. It means individualistic in like an ancient Japanese language, that sort of stuff. It also means dancing in Italian, which is cool.
Yeah.
And as soon as he said it to us, and we saw it written down, we thought that's the one. It really fits with what we are, who we are, and so obviously the branding followed, and it really stepped us up a notch. It took us from sort of being a startup sort of SME to really sort of establishing ourselves, and it was a move I really think I don't regret at all. It was the proper decision to do.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool name.
Sorry, Steve. I'm intrigued. So on that walk, you mentioned that one of your values is not to be scared to suggest that change. Not just going to come in and go, yeah, we'll carry on with that. That's working for you, rather than actually, do you know what, that's not right. How do you find, because one of the things that we do is when we go into companies, one of the key things that we're doing is change management. You know, what we put into businesses is in effect changing a process for the better, but sometimes it meets resistance. So I'm intrigued to understand when you go back to a client that's like, yeah, it's all fine, but actually we want you to pick it up, please, Craig. How do you, when you go back and go, do you know what, that's not right for you, it needs to be this, how do you find the response to suggesting change?
Yeah, it was an interesting question, isn't it? And I think a lot of it is fear of unknown. So I think, you know, if you don't know what you don't know, that can be a big issue. I think a lot of it is, you know, explaining what the benefits would be, why it would be why a certain change would be a good idea, making sure that they fully understand what we're going to do, why we're going to do it, what it's going to achieve, and what would be the problems of not doing it. And then obviously letting the client decide, because obviously we're not going to force change on people. But if we suggest, you know, from that point of view, you know, you've got you know, an old database that you use, you know, an Excel spreadsheet or something. You know, if you were to invest, you know, a relatively small amount of money, for example, in a CRM system, that means that all your staff would be able to access it from wherever. You'd be able to work on it from home. We'd be able to plug a reporting platform into it. That reporting platform would be able to give you all your stats, your income, anything that's outstanding, work that's outstanding, project tools. You'd be able to assign projects to people, and when they hear what it can do, I think most of the time they know it's a no-brainer. So then it's just kind of how you manage that and map it out to them. That stage process, like, you know, we're going to use your old system right until the new one's ready. Then we're going to do a migration piece. So we're going to move the stuff from what you're doing into the new system. Explain what testing happens. Explain like resilience, failovers, what's going to happen if it doesn't work, and we'll go back to doing this. And kind of just explaining fully what's going to happen. And keeping them involved as well. I think part of our bespoke CRM is we can like brand it up as them. We can put logos where you want logos. You can have your own colours, all that sort of stuff. So I think it really establishes their identity too, which is a really useful thing.
Yeah, the small touches, aren't they? But I think important. It makes them feel part of the change, I guess.
Yes.
So, one of the other things you said there, Craig, testing. How does that go?
So we do testing internally, and then we'll do like a soft launch where we let the client do testing as well, and then we'll probably do like kind of a phased rollout where we let some of the staff do some testing. So it's kind of, we really put it through its paces to make sure that it's released to a standard that can be usable, or while the existing system or platform is running in the background, so that they're not sort of. Because one thing that you really have an issue is if you've got directors and stuff making these decisions, but I think it's really important to involve the people on the ground as well.
Yeah.
So if you've got like a team of people, I don't know, road safety inspectors or something who are using a thing like a PDA or something like that, and they're kind of going out and then it turns out they have to actually use their mobile phone now and email a picture in and upload it because the new system doesn't do pictures. With the old one did, that's, you just instantly lose buy-in from the people who are actually using the system, which, you know, has a really negative effect on the business. So I think spending time asking the director and stuff, you know, can you bring in the workers, and can you bring one into the meeting? Can you, and hearing from them, like hearing on the ground what they're doing, that's a huge piece, I think, that really sets it out and lets them kind of know how it's going to be and know how it's going to work.
Do you ever have any challenges in that area though?
Yeah.
Because people have, as we find out regularly, people have their day job to do, and when you say, can you spend some time testing this solution, they're not experienced testers, they've probably never done it before, they probably don't see the value of it, and they're busy.
Yeah.
And that's an issue that we do come across, I don't mind saying.
Yeah. We encounter the same issue. So I think it's all in terms of like when you sort of build the system, or when you're going through the sort of selling phase, it's important to put it in within the sort of the project scope that, in 6 months' time, this week and that week, we're going to need a person to test this. In 8 months' time, when we're doing the launch, we're going to need half of your guys in a training session and the other half do, so I think if you give them that scope right at the beginning and tell them what's going to happen and what's expected to come, it's just about being like open and transparent, isn't it? And showing them what they need and when and how and what they'll need to bring and what they'll need to have and what resilience they'll need. As long as you have that, if you're dropping it on them like on a Friday or on Monday, can somebody test something, that's not going to go down too well.
Yeah.
I suppose if I can counter that slightly, I agree with everything you've said. Even when you put the plan together and you tell them that in 6-8 weeks time we're going to need you to test this element of the system, and in 10 weeks time that element of the system, and then we get to that point, we're ready, and they go, oh, something's changed, we can't do it. And you have to be, as the provider, you have to be flexible, but sometimes that can be the challenge. You can have the best laid plans and all of that, but actually when it then falls over and then suddenly they're stressed because they've got this work that's been dumped on them or whatever situation, and then it affects when they test. And then we sometimes experience where someone will say, I've tested it, so we want them to test, let's say 100 of whatever the process is, and they test 5, and it's like because that's the only time I've got. So do you ever get the situation where the plan changes, and how's that managed via the client?
Yeah, obviously it happens all the time. Things crop up. Issues occur within their person's businesses that has to delay projects and stuff like that. So it's about managing that with them and sort of working towards their new deadlines. But I think it's important to establish that right back in the sales stage. So put that back on them. Like, are you invested enough in this to give us like 6 weeks worth of testing? Are you invested enough in this to give us an employee for 4 days to test? And then maybe sort of creating sort of training guides and stuff on paper that say like what needs to be tested with sign off. And then obviously that kind of puts more information onto them so that they can see what they need to do and when. And then even right back at that stage, it could be a really good project, it could be something that's really exciting, but if the person says to you, like, I haven't got that time to invest in that, knowing to say, okay, let us know when you can, and we'll park the project, because it's no point rushing into it when that person's not ready.
Yeah, no, I agree. We experience the same challenges. I'm always interested when we get kind of owners of businesses on about the kind of the journey, I guess, of setting the business up and growing the business. And if you from 2019 to now to have 9 people and a successful business in 3 offices, you've obviously done a really good job. I guess what have been the big challenges over the last few years as you've scaled the business? Is anything that's come and blindsided you that you thought, God, I didn't expect that?
Yeah, all the time. I think the biggest thing is staff, like from 2 points of view. One is like that sort of that, I can't think of the right word to use, the responsibility, I suppose, of hiring someone and knowing it's the right time to hire someone, and you're responsible for their income and all that sort of stuff plays a big part with me. The other part of it is obviously it's very different, in my opinion, from, I've managed teams in loads of previous jobs, but it's very different from being an employer to being a manager. I think, you try and make the company a really nice culture, you try and make it a lovely place to work, you try and choose the right people. Unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't go quite how you expect, and you find that people don't do quite what they should do when you're not there, or they take an opportunity to not do something or cut corners if it's not fitting with your brand and stuff like that. So, and I take that very personally, because like we've chose the person. So that's probably the biggest thing. The other is obviously is the fact that I work with my other half. So that's both of us invested in the business. So in terms of like a safety net, I suppose it's not like we're one of us is on Morrison's checkout that can at least pay the bills. Both of us are foot first in the business, but I think it's about going back to what you're saying about the New York stuff and the technical support. It's about making sure that you only take on what you can, not taking on too much, not running before you can walk, and choosing I'd like to like our clients are really nice people. We choose to work with nice people. So it's about making sure that we get the right fit for our business as well.
Do you walk away from opportunities where you're like, do you know what, you're not the right fit for us?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's something, I think that's kind of when you know that your business is nicely established, because go back to even before 2019 when we were still doing it sort of part-time and stuff. We've took on some large projects for tiny budgets for really difficult people, and that thing that where you can say, if the person isn't a good fit, you're not doing either party any favors. So you're not doing your client the right service, and you're not doing your team the right service as well. In terms of like, it's a very, very kind of big thing for us that you treat our technical services staff with respect. So if you're ringing up with a problem, appreciate your IT issues and things like that. They're going to deal with it to the highest standard. They're going to sort you out. And so if I saw a hint in someone that they weren't going to speak to us very nicely, I mean, I've worked in call centers, I've worked in that sort of stuff before. So if a client, was to sort of behave like that's not a good fit for us. And you can normally see that in the sales process. You can tell like sort of what their demands are, and that's something you learn. That's not something you pick up overnight, and that's kind of a thing. The other thing I think as well is yes, I'm the business owner, but having some faith and trust in your team. So I don't, just because I own the business doesn't mean I know everything there is to know. So there is times when a technician will probably know more in an area than I do, and it's about having that faith and that trust in asking what they think, asking for their opinion. Makes them feel valued. It makes sure that you're giving the right solution for your client, and not to be too big-headed in that situation, I think too.
So you're a tight-knit team of 9. What do you do for fun? Do you have like quarterly catch-ups where you go out and have a beer or a meal, or?
Yeah, we like to do that as often as we can. So we're a little bit spread out in terms of geography. We've got a couple of guys in the northeast. We've got some people who travel sort of 45 minutes an hour into the office in Sheffield. And so we do like to at least quarterly put on like some sort of food, just have a general bit of a night out, let our hair down and stuff. And I think that's so important. Because they get to know you as you. I think everyone sees you as the business owner. They see you as like kind of the boss, if you like. And we don't like that culture. We like to work collaborative. We like to work together. So I think letting your hair down. We have such a mix of staff. Our eldest member of staff is 71. Our youngest is really. There's a bit of a story behind that too. Our youngest member of staff is about 19, 20. He's a part-timer. He's just on last year of uni, so he works with us part-time. So it's just bringing all them people together from such a wide mix of people and such a wide range of expertise. I think it's important to do the downtime and the catch-ups and stuff like that too.
Can you tell us the story behind the 71-year-old? Because JB's only a couple of years off it. So
wow. Oh, you've gone there again.
So that's Mike. So I worked with Mike about 7 years ago. I first met him. Maybe it was a bit less. That was when we were working for a council, I was hiring I was an IT manager there for 3 or 4 sites, and I was hiring for an office in central Sheffield. And I got his CV, and I thought it was a mistake at first because I saw he graduated in 1974, and I thought surely it must be 94. It must be a typo. He's got a lot of experience, so we'll see him. Forgive the typo. Anyway, he walked in and clearly, he was not. It wasn't a typo. And he said to us basically, he's a really, really successful guy in his own right, Mike. He's worked in Australia for some huge banks. He's worked in London. He's worked in Iran during the Islamic Revolution, the States. He's really, really, really experienced, knowledgeable guy. And he come in, I said, look, I know I probably shouldn't answer the question, but why do you want to come and work here as a technician? He said, well, I've got financially, I've got an amazing pension, all that sort of stuff. So it's not about, it's about I'm losing the will to live. I'm so bored. I'm kind of, I've cleaned every brick, I've washed every paving slab, every roof tiles in the right places. As I can't, I need something to do. So he come on board, and he did the work of about 5 guys.
Really?
Honestly, he's so hardworking, he's so conscientious. And so fast forward to redundancy, he went back into retirement, I think, for a little while. And he asked if he could, he saw what we were doing with the business and asked if he could come and work with us. I said no the first time because we couldn't afford him. I was like, because he says I just do bits and bobs. I said no, we want to pay you. Like it's the right thing to do. So I think he started work was about 2 years ago for Valiente. And again, he's part time. He has a lovely little routine. You know, he looks after his grandson as well, and his son's dog and all that sort of stuff. But again, he's in his part time. He does the work of a full timer probably and more. You know, he's so knowledgeable. He's great with what he suggests, and he's a very strange 71-year-old in the fact that he's happy to learn the new technology. So he's our expert in Power BI. He knows all that sort of stuff. In an era where really, without being disrespectful, that, you know, kind of 50 plus, they're kind of getting into
checking out.
I'm not interested in that. I don't
Checking out now.
Yeah. So, and it's really cool actually, because we've made a close sort of friendship with his son. So he's just gone into business last year. He started a telematics company. That's really doing quite well, and it's nice to see him doing that, all that sort of stuff. So it's nice, and it's most of our technical guys we've chosen rather than hired. So it's a nice mix in the office.
So my final question is: so what do you and Lewis do for downtime then? Do you actually ever shut down and go, do you know what, we'll park Valiente for a while?
No, it really has took over our life. You know, people did warn us of that before we started, and I didn't quite realise quite how much it would. But I'm also not bothered. I love doing what I do. I love having a business. I love looking at what we've achieved in terms of like going into somebody's business and making improvements. I love seeing like their workflows that have improved. So I do enjoy that. We kind of have a little ritual now on Saturday morning that we will just watch TV and eat bacon sandwiches, and just kind of make sure that Saturday morning is free. So that's become our little bit of a downtime. Yeah, just going out for meals and stuff like that, I think, as well, or an evening after a busy day. Just making time for each other, and making sure that we kind of do the fun stuff as well, that kind of, you know, any decoration in the house or stuff like that, just making sure that you plan them things in, and probably biggest tip is put it in your diary, because if it's in your diary, you'll likely do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip. All right, last question from me. So the podcast is called Tomorrow's Workplace Today. So we ask each guest, if you can kind of cast your mind forward 10 years, what does the workplace of 10 years look like in comparison to today?
Oh, interesting question. So I think a lot more technology is going to be coming in place. I mean, we were just talking before we started, weren't we, about Microsoft Copilot. I think that's going to be an absolutely amazing piece of kit. I don't know very much about it because there's not a great deal of information yet. I think it's released in December. But from what I've seen in like research on YouTube videos and things like that, you're going to be able to do stuff like, you know, create me a 10-page PowerPoint presentation about X business to present a sales pitch to them, and it's going to present you that, or create me a 15-slide presentation about my budget for the last year, and you're going to be able to go into a boardroom with this present. So I think that's going to be absolutely amazing. I think we're going to see a lot more AI, a lot more technology. I think we're going to see a lot more flexibility as well, as people come, like the younger generation want a lot more flexibility. I think the old-fashioned working to live, is that the right way around? Working to live to work?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I think that's going to change big style. I think people are going to want to do, because they're seeing it on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook, and people like where they're getting their hands on a van, and they're touring the US or touring Europe, and they're able to work from their laptops. And my view on that is, why not? You know, if you can still deliver and you're still able to do what you want to do, why can't you do that? So I think employers will probably move to that sort of shift of a lot more flexibly working, and probably replacing some gaps with tech.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant answer. Craig, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on, and best of luck with Ballyante.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.